Welcome, everybody, to our referendum community session. We're hoping to get a lot of good work done here. Again, really appreciate everyone showing up. My name is Jake Carnop. I'm the Fridley School Board Chair. Honored to have this role. I've been with the district on the school board for about 5 years now, I think. Fantastic experience. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to address you tonight as we gather to discuss a critical matter that will shape the future of our schools and certainly our community. I would like to first take this opportunity to introduce my fellow board members, either here in person or certainly watching the live stream via internet. We've got Nikki Anna, Vice Chair. Nikki, stand up. We have Ross Meisner, Clerk. And then I'm guessing probably watching remotely, we've got Sarah Jones. Oh, was she? Okay. So Sarah will sneak in here in a little bit. We also have Eric Keeler. He's our treasurer. And then I did see Ivana. I thought there she is. Ivana, stand up. Oh. Thank you. So each of us is here tonight, whether we are in person or online, because we believe in the power of education that transforms lives. They strengthen our community, and they will certainly build a brighter future for our students. We also recognize that providing the best possible education requires investment. It requires an investment in commitment and the collective support of our entire Fridley community. Tonight, we'll share the details of the referendum. We will explain why we believe it's essential and answer any questions you may have. We want to ensure that you have all of the information you need to make an informed decision. Before we begin the presentation, I'd like to acknowledge that we all have a shared value here. And that shared value is that we all want our children to succeed. We all want our schools to be safe, welcoming, and equipped to prepare our students for the challenges and opportunities ahead, and we all want our community to thrive. The referendum before us represents an opportunity to reaffirm these values and invest in the future of our students, our schools, and again, in our community as a whole. I want to express my sincere gratitude for your presence tonight and your continued support of our schools. Your participation is tantamount to our mission, which is, and this is in our mission statement, Fridley Public Schools is an international, connected community that boldly and passionately supports every student. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Brenda Lewis, our superintendent.
I am Brenda, as Jake said, superintendent. I'm also a mom of 3 kids in the district, so I have a 10th grader, a 9th grader, and a 7th grader, and I also live in Fridley Public Schools. So it's great to have you here tonight. I was getting a few phone calls and emails, which is great, in anticipation of this, and that really helped us with how we framed the presentation for you tonight. The number one question I get is, are you telling people how to vote? I actually can't tell you how to vote because as superintendent of schools, I am, for purposes of the law and honestly in workload sometimes, I'm considered a 24/7, 365 district employee. So you won't see a yard sign in my yard, you won't see any sort of engagement around yes or no. My job is just to tell you the facts. What I will tell you is the staff and the school board that are in the room for tonight's purpose, all of us are here conducting district business. So that means school board members also will not be weighing in on yes or no, and neither will employees. However, I'm the only one that has the 24/7, 365 rule. So when you talk to school board members outside of this space or board meeting, or when they're conducting district business, or staff outside of their contract time, they can certainly weigh in with you on that if they choose. So just wanted to let you know that, because sometimes it's frustrating. I had a caller last week, very passionate, and she said to me, why won't you just tell me to vote yes? And I said, because it's illegal for me to do that. So it was just really good, and that surprises folks as well. So with that, we wanted to just start tonight with a basic video that overviews for you a little bit about Fridley Public Schools, but more about the state of education in Minnesota.
In 2023, as a result of a large budget surplus, the Minnesota legislature approved significant funding for schools. But there's more to this story beyond the headlines. With the new state funding, there were also new mandates, adding new expenses for our schools. School funding is complex, with most revenue coming through a combination of state aids and locally collected property taxes. The majority of our district's revenue comes from the state in the form of general education aid. We also receive funding for specific categories, but we can only spend that money on the category it was allotted for. In other words, just because the state is providing us with more dollars doesn't mean we can use those dollars wherever we like. The remaining revenue for our district comes from local tuition and fees, federal grants, and local property taxes. The largest portion of our budget goes toward paying our teachers and staff. Our people are our biggest asset and our most significant expense. Our budget also has to cover other things, such as curriculum, technology, transportation, operations, maintenance, and administration. The state mandates some of our spending for things like special education services and certain required courses. But many state mandates do not include enough money to pay for them, so we have to take money from other important budgets to cover those mandates. Other factors that impact how we spend money include inflation, class size ratios, aging buildings, emerging technology, and the specific needs of our students. And while we work hard to balance our budget every year, sometimes unexpected factors can make a significant impact. When we find ourselves in a situation where the needs of our students are outpacing the funding we receive from state and local taxes, we may go to our community with a referendum to ask for additional funding. Each year, we tackle the challenge of balancing all of these funding sources and expenses to build an effective budget. School budgets can be complicated, but what isn't complicated is our commitment to using our resources wisely on behalf of our students. We strive to be good stewards of the resources our communities have entrusted to us, while putting the needs of our students first. By working together, we can keep our schools and our community strong.
So you can follow along on the presentation tonight. There's QR codes at your table, as well as you can scan this one, but it might be a little bit difficult in the back. This presentation also will be on our website. Tonight we're going to talk about our operational needs, our building and facility needs, proposed solution, the tax impact, and then at every table we will have every table will have a board member, and at every table we'll have an administrator. And so they'll be able to engage in discussion, field questions, and any questions that they can't answer, we have a team up here that will also assist. Okay, you heard on the video talking about the gap between state funding and the cost of educating each student in Fridley. It continues to widen. Our formula allowance from the state of Minnesota, if it had kept up at inflation, we would have received an additional just south of $4 million in aid for the 23-24 school year. This is not unique to Fridley. When you go to larger districts like Anoka-Hennepin, you'll see a much larger gap. Smaller districts, smaller gap, but still impactful on their budgets as well. Many school districts, 70% in Minnesota, rely on local taxes for operating levies. That requires voter approval, and that helps us to bridge some of that funding gap. I get asked, probably the number one question I get asked about open enrollment is, do my tax dollars support kids that are open enrolled into Fridley? Yes, they do. So we have our operating referendum, our levy, is based on the number of students that are enrolled in our district. Fridley is open enrolling about 40% of our total enrollment. Some might pause and think, ugh, that seems like a lot. Fridley is one of 7 districts within Northwest Suburban Integration District, and that involves a number of districts that surround us, including Buffalo, Hanover, Montrose, Anoka-Hennepin, Osseo, Brooklyn Center, and a few more. And the purpose of that is many, many, many years ago, there was money allocated through integration aid at a state level and then at a district level that invited districts to join integration districts. And what that does is it broadens opportunities. So Fridley Public Schools is a magnet for International Baccalaureate. So that means any of our schools here, with the exception of our ALC and our Vista Setting 4 program, are considered part of Northwest Suburban District. And what happens then is any of the 6 other district students that open enroll into us, they get free transportation. And the same is said about when we open enroll students out. They get free transportation if they go within there, and they might not want to choose Fridley as an IB, but they choose maybe a STEAM magnet. So that's a large part of why you see those open enrollment numbers. People say to me like, oh, if we just ended open enrollment, then my tax dollars wouldn't be so much. Well, if we ended open enrollment as a state level, because it's state law, if we ended open enrollment, the kids that are open enrolling out of Fridley would be here, so you'd still be paying on that local levy. So just wanted to explain that. This is the #1 question I get about that. So if you look at how much revenue we receive in Fridley Public Schools from open enrollment, it's over $7 million, or excuse me, over $8 million a year that we realize. It's not a small amount of money, and that's over $70 million the past decade. If we did not have open enrollment of students coming into our district, we would see much higher class sizes. That's what we would honestly see. Because if you think about that, you think about taking away 40%, wouldn't it be great if that 40% was a class of first grade, a class of second grade, a class of third grade? But that's not how that necessarily works, right? So that's, again, just wanted to hit this front and center because open enrollment can sometimes be a hot topic for communities. So I just wanted to share right away that yes, property taxes are paid on every student that attends Fridley, but not on resident students that open enroll out, not on resident students that choose homeschool, not on resident students that choose private school. Whoops. Our proposed solution here, this is you, Jason, right? Yes. Sorry about that. I'm calling up Jason Munzenberger, who is our CFO. Here's the clicker, Jason.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jason Mutzenberger. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Fridley Public Schools. Thank you for being here this evening to hear about our proposed solution. And that comes on Election Day, November 5th this year, where we'll be asking you to vote on a new operating referendum or levy. We say levy. Levies are for learning. We're going to talk about bonds in a little bit. Bonds are for building. So here, levies for learning. The new operating levy would begin next school year, so school year 2025-26, and would generate about $1.1 million in new revenue. The revenue would help us stabilize district finances and reduce our projected budget gap. You see, we say reduce budget gap. That indicates there's a larger budget gap that we have to navigate. And we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $3.5 million of a budget gap. So this is one of our proposed solutions to close that gap. And we'll continue to work through administration on what those other reductions and solutions can look like. The operating levy authority provided through an approved vote would generate it's $424 per pupil or per student. So take the $424 times the number of students we serve, and that's how you get the $1.1 million in revenue. Oh, I gotta go the other way. So what's the tax impact of the new levy? On a home valued at $250,000, it's about $11 a month. On the average home in Fridley, which is $313,000, it'd be about $14 a month. And on a $400,000 home, we're at $17 a month. You have the ability to go on the website on that QR code and plug in the value of your home, and it'll show you what that tax impact looks like. So you can get an exact number based on the value of your home. So operational needs. What if question 1 is approved on the left side? We're going to do our best to maintain the current class sizes we have, to maintain the instructional support that we have. Those are the additional staff and paraprofessionals and others within the schools to support our students. We'll retain the staff, the high-quality staff that we have, and attract additional high-quality teachers and staff. And we would avoid cuts to programs and services. Those all sound like good things, and that's what we are hoping with the passage of a levy that would provide. If the referendum is not approved, we're looking at significant reductions. Again, we have that large budget cut, so we would need to look at significant reductions for next school year to stabilize our finances. We're also likely looking at reductions into future years. Reductions at one point in time are not going to solve a long-term structural issue, so we'll have to look at reductions into the future. And then we'll still come back, more than likely, and ask the community for another levy. That may be in November of '25 or beyond, depending on what the circumstance looks like. The need is there, I think, is the bottom line. We have the need for additional levy, additional funds in order to close that gap that Dr. Lewis talked about. That gap between the state aid, the money the state provides, and the cost to educate our students. And so that gap is why we come to the community and ask for a levy. This is a small chart. If you're following along on a device, it might be a little bit easier. What we're showing here is the comparable school districts and surrounding districts are nearby, and the amount of property tax levy that they have in place. The third bar is Fridley. We have $599 of a operating referendum in place currently. And you can see how that charts against our surrounding community. In the middle, you see a black bar that says state average. It's about $1,000 per student. So we're at about $600. The state average is $1,000. And the metropolitan average, which is 2 bars over, also in black, is about $1,500 a student. And you can see there's quite a range from where we're at $600 all the way up to Minneapolis at $2,300 per student. And that's why funding differences exist within school districts, because they have different amount of referendums in place. So what if the referendum does pass? Where will that put us? And you can see our bar jumps up. We're at $1,023, which is still below the state average. We're estimating the state average would increase to about $1,100. The metro average is sitting at about $1,500.
Someone help him there. Dave.
Leave it up to me to.
Wait, what's your name again?
Take some village right in there.
There we go. All right, so again, this chart is showing if the referendum would pass, the amount of revenue we receive per student would go from about $600 per student up to $1,023, which would still put us below the state average and certainly below the metropolitan average here in our area. I'll turn it back to Dr. Lewis to talk about building and facility needs.
Thank you so much. I wish I was standing in front of you and saying, we are asking to get bright, shiny, new, and beautiful. We are not. In our district, with the aging buildings that we have, we have an ever-growing list of deferred maintenance. I am often asked to talk about what I mean by deferred maintenance. Have any of you noticed our new parking lot that we have?
Yeah, nice.
It's nice, right? Do you think that was a necessity or a nicety? A nicety. I wish it was a nicety. Let me tell you the state of the parking lot when I arrived last year. We began to dread any storm, any even light rain. What would happen is we had rain and water that would literally flood our building. We were at a place where we had to have our parking lot pumped out, and in the month of October, we pumped it out 8 times. Does anyone want to guess how much that was per time to pump that out? $2,000 a time, exactly correct. We had to have that pumped out on a holiday. Anyone want to guess how much that was? $4,000. Good job. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The amount of money we were spending just to pump this out last year was not okay.
What did you have to pump out?
I know, it's crazy. I love your tone of voice. Yes, what do we have to pump out? All this water was coming. We had a pond that was formed anytime it would rain, and the water would run into our building.
We're out here or the high?
In the back parking lot of the FCC. Yep. So it would run down into our building. And what happens when water runs into a building like this? Many of you have been here when this has happened for our senior programs. Soaking wet carpets, right? And it was coming 4 feet in from the windows. So you extract and you extract and you use towels and you do all of that. And what happens with a building when it's flooded maybe 5 times in a month? Mold. So last year in October, we had to do immediate mold remediation. Then we had to replace carpets. That's why we need to really look at our buildings. We still have a further problem in this building. Our windows are also leaking all the time, always. So that's another fix. So I wish I could say to you, this was to get different things. It's to make sure that we take care of our assets. And what's happening is the amount of dollars it's costing to take care of our assets is actually pulling out of the learning bucket. So in schools in Minnesota, like Jason said, there's the learning bucket and then there's the building bucket. Well, the building bucket, when you run out, where do you pull it from? The learning bucket, right? We're pulling out of our learning bucket over $2 million a year. I also get very nervous as the superintendent about a catastrophic failure. What do you think I mean by that? A boiler goes out, right? A big expense. That's not this. That would be over and above that to replace that. So we're really coming to the community to say, we want to take care of the assets that we have. We want to keep our assets safe. We want to fix things when they need to be fixed. If you wait to fix roofs and you wait to fix leaks and you wait to fix windows, does it get cheaper or more expensive? More expensive, right? So we want to be fiscally responsible and cost as less of money to make our assets last longer. Sometimes you'll see referendums or bonds that are run for additions, new schools, upgrades. That's just not what ours is for. Our proposed solution is, Jason, is this you on the proposed? It's me. Is $30 million facility bond referendum. Jason's gonna talk about this in a minute. So I think before he talked about on the learning, it's a little north of $1 million of revenue we would get a year. This is $30 million. This actually comes at a zero tax impact. It sounds like I'm fraud, right? So Jason's going to talk about that. It has to do with debt service expiring, and our district has done a really excellent job with debt service and how that's spaced out so that in the future, like now, the district was planful many, many years ago to say, we want our debt service to fall off gradually so that we can continue with deferred maintenance projects in a way that doesn't hike taxes. So he's going to talk much more about that with you. I'm going to call up our colleagues from Apex, and they are our team that comes in to all of the buildings. They know the DNA of all of our buildings. And it's kind of like when you take the car to the mechanic, I get terrified when they come to me to tell me what their assessment is, because you never know if it's going to be $400 or $2,300. So they look at everything and talk to us about our vulnerabilities. What they also do is they talk to us about immediate attention is needed on this, Brenda. We think you can wait 4 to 5 years on this. We think this, you should be good and don't even need it in your 10-year plan. So they're going to talk about a few more specifics for you. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Robert Kierkowski. I work for Apex Facility Solutions. We're a construction management engineering firm that has been working with the district for several years now. We went through and did a full building site, HVAC, electrical systems overhaul, and kind of looked at all the different systems, all the different facilities that are throughout the multiple buildings, multiple sites throughout the district. A lot of them really aligned with the district and what their current visions are and what their needs are. So safety, security, the academics, where the classrooms are, how they're actually interacting, and how some of the other facilities kind of interact with not only the community, but also the students and the staff and how they interact with each other. One of the things that we really looked at was, safety and security, looking at windows, looking at where the cameras are, where the card access is, and really what's the ability for people to get in and out of the building safely. And how can you get the key management, the people that need to get in, and the way that they go, and how can they get in there safely and securely is a very key item that we're looking at for all the different buildings. All right, I'm going to guess on a button. All right, I got it right. Now, the other side is we were talking about is water. We're always looking at how is the best way to keep the outside outside and the inside inside. So roofing, windows, building envelope, the way the tuck pointing is, how can we make sure that that water stays outside, then nothing deteriorates a building faster than water. Water mitigation, water control is a big key item that we're looking at. Roofing is a big one that we're looking at throughout the whole entire district. This building is kind of one of the first key buildings that we're looking at for roofing replacements, for window replacements, because we know there's been water issues and we're trying to keep that all out. A lot of the other windows are original to the buildings, 1960s, 1970s. Windows just don't last forever. We're really looking at getting those replaced as part of the overall process of it. We're not really looking to add to it, we're just looking to replace for what's there. Other items that we're looking at is flooring, walls. There's a lot of vinyl flooring, a lot of original flooring from the 1950s, 1960s that you can keep waxing. The school district has done a great job updating the buildings, updating as it is, waxing the floors, trying to maintain the systems that they have. You just can't keep fixing stuff that is over 50, 60, 70 years old. As much as you can try to do it, they just need to get replaced. And this goes back to the students making sure they have proper lighting, proper environments, and the proper facilities to actually be able to go into a room and not worrying about, all right, is that floor tile coming up? Or, okay, the carpeting is still, 20 years old. Or how is that affecting them? And be able to get into a good learning environment for all the students. Other things that we're looking at is that the district has a great facility as the pool. That pool facility is a great asset that is within the community itself, but there really is no family changing area. There is no areas that they can go in and, properly get kids changed and have there. So kind of renovating that locker area so that way there is the proper facilities for not only the staff, but also for the community, because it is such a great asset for the community itself. And we're talking about the safety and security. We're always looking at how are the parking lots set up? What are the kids that are coming in? Not only the busing situation as the buses come in to make sure the kids are dropped off safely. How are the older kids at the high schools when they're driving in and being dropped off? So we're looking at the high school and kind of figuring out what's the best flow for the best security and the safety of all the students and the public that are coming in for the facilities. Also, the community center, we're looking for here, they've got a great early education system here, but the playground system is kind of what we call at the end of useful life. It's just at the point that it just needs to get replaced. Plus, there's a lot of really good learning applications that have come out in the last 10 years of how you can actually learn as you play. And so getting some of that learning and playing activities to get better fine motor skills, gross motor skills that they can actually do on the playing equipment, they don't realize that they're learning, but they really are. The other one is the stadium. The track that is out there has gotten to the point that the Minnesota Youth Athletics has essentially said you can't hold any fields here. So getting that renovated, getting that back to where it needs to be, getting the storage, getting the press box so that way it's usable and you're not swinging in the wind as you're watching the games and watching the softball and the soccer and the football games. So that way it's a safe facility for everyone to have, and then it's usable for decades to come. I think I'm... There you go.
So we talked about the gap in general fund of almost $3.5 million. 1.1 would be solved by a new operating levy. Passage of the bond helps the general fund as well. Currently, as Dr. Lewis mentioned, we're spending some of our learning dollars on deferred maintenance. And so passage of the bond referendum would reduce about $1 million out of the general fund and be able to update those deferred maintenance items, which would free up money and help solve or start to solve that budget gap that we have in general fund. So property tax impact, as Dr. Lewis mentioned, there is no tax impact. And she's right, this is a good deal. Where else can you get $30 million with no tax impact? And I'll come back to that slide in a minute. So what is going on? She mentioned debt service. We currently take out debt in these types of situations like this bond referendum. I should say we issue debt, usually over like a 20-year period. So think of it as a mortgage for the school district in order to pay for these deferred maintenance items or do buildings and additions and types of things. So Fridley has done a number of things over the years and taken on additional debt. That debt is starting to be paid off. And so it's freeing up tax capacity so that we could take on additional debt. We look at it, as Dr. Lewis said, as a way to structure our long-term debt or what those needs are long-term and be able to pay for those over the period of time by keeping your taxes relatively flat. So when we talk about bonds, we try and wait till we pay off one of those previous debts in order to issue a new one. And so this is just the case that's happening. So we have existing debt that is falling off in calendar 2028. So if this question was not to pass, your taxes don't go down next year. They would go down in 2028 should we not have anything pass until then. What we're able to do is structure the debt so we make largely interest-only payments on the front end and then start issuing those or start making those principal payments in 2028 to pay down that debt over that 20-year period. That's how we're able to keep the tax impact at zero, which is obviously a great value.
Jason, can you talk about why the ballot will say it's increasing taxes?
Yeah, we don't control that. So you can see in the small print down there, state law requires ballot language to include the statement, by voting yes on this ballot question, you are voting for a property tax increase. That's required under state law. So we're asking you to issue $30 million of debt for the district. So we're taking on additional debt. And with that would come a tax increase with the exception of us being able to reduce it because we're paying off other debt. That doesn't get combined in the question. So the text or the question on the ballot is simply, you're voting for a tax increase because you're voting for $30 million. We're trying to share the story of why that tax impact is going to be zero, but on the ballot it's still going to show as an increase, even though your tax statement won't change. I keep pushing the wrong button. My apologies. Just as we did with the levy question, so what if question 2 is approved? So we've got $30 million roughly of renovation and improvements at all district facilities. So this is every site will be impacted and benefited by these dollars. The amount of revenue taken from the general fund to cover the renovations and repairs will be reduced, saving the general fund about $1 million per year, and putting that money back into classrooms, and then ultimately helping to stabilize the district's general fund budget. If the question's not approved, funds will not be available to address the continued facility renovations and repairs. It will likely be necessary to use general fund budget again to continue to help cover facility renovations and repairs. And they're not going to go away, right? It's just those of us that are property owners, we continue to have to invest into our homes to keep them updated. And that's the same with the school buildings that we have. We have to continue to invest in them to keep proper learning spaces in place. And this is a great investment and asset that you have within your community. And so we would likely need to consider another bond referendum into future years should this not pass.
Okay, just a couple more statements before we open it to table discussions. Many of our restrooms and other learning spaces are not ADA compliant. So when you come, for example, to see our summer musical, that's not able to have a wheelchair in most of the restrooms that we have throughout our district. That's just one example. So we really need to be ADA compliant with how we do our facilities. I wish I could tell you that restroom that we showed on the photo was the worst restroom that we have in the district. That's really what all of our restrooms look like. Our pool, again, it was talked about how that's a very much a community asset. Unfortunately, this year we had our aquatics director cut herself from her elbow to her wrist on loose tile. We had a student from another school district injure herself during a swim meet to the point that she couldn't swim because our tile is literally falling off in the pool and outside of the pool. Where always, Rochelle will say to me, we need to change the filter. And I say, are you gonna drain the pool? And she says, hopefully not, but I'm terrified that if we drain the pool, what do you think I'm worried about? It's not gonna be able to be filled back up, right? So again, these are just the pieces where people are realizing injuries in some of our spaces. We have this meeting called Meet and Confer, where I get to meet often with a board member with our teachers union. And one of the requests that came last year was, can we please get furniture that doesn't cut our students open? And that's just literally the metal, it was breaking and cutting students open. So again, I wish I was coming to you. When I was in Rochester Public Schools, Grand Forks, we got to run referendums for bright, beautiful, shiny buildings. Ours is just to take care of our assets. And I wish I could say to you, we're getting all this fabulous stuff. It's just really to take care of our assets and the community for many years to come. So with that, board members, I'm going to ask you to kind of table share here so that we can have as many tables to have a board member, and then there's administration at every table. If you have questions that weren't answered in the presentation, just let them know, and then they'll bring them up to us, and we'll field questions. All right, I wanted to call us back here. I would like you, over the next week, I'm going to give you some homework. We're going to talk about on our website and our social media the cost of artificial turf and grass, short-term and long-term. That was a question. So we'll push that out. We'll address what did previous $27.5 million in bonds pay for? Thank you for that. We'll push that out. And any other questions that came up at our tables? The question also was, is this subject to inflation? Yes, it is. Will my taxes go up year after year? It depends. So we'll explain all of that as well. You laugh at that. I wish I could say affirmative yes or no, but there's a lot of factors. So with that, I'm first going to thank you for coming tonight. You're more than happy to stay. I just had someone say, should we keep staying, keep chatting? You certainly can, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. It was also so nice to connect with people that have said to me, I raised my kids, we lived in Fridley Public Schools. It's just nice to hear those stories about that as well. So with that, I'm going to have the official goodbye come from our chair.
Thanks, Brenda. Thank you so much for attending tonight. With our busy schedules and our conflicts that we have in our lives, this is very important to us. Clearly, we're all here because we care. We care about the city of Fridley, we care about our school district, and we certainly care about our kids that we send to school. So thank you very much again, especially on behalf of my fellow board members. We simply cannot do this without you. Whether it's in the ballot box or it's in forums like this, or if it's volunteering at a school function, we cannot do what we do as school board members, as educators, as administrators without a strong community to support us. So with that, I think we will conclude this evening. We do have a video of this, right? If people want to reference it later on and take a look at it or share it with your friends and neighbors, please absolutely do that. I'm guessing we'll kind of be lingering around a little bit here. Will commit myself to hanging out as long as it takes to answer any of the questions. But again, thank you very much.